Have you ever noticed that the more you let go, the more people chase after you? The more you pull back quietly, the more they ask about you. The fewer explanations you give, the more attention you draw. It's not a coincidence, it's strategy. What you call detachment is sometimes just power at rest. We live in a world that's taught you being available is a virtue, that showing your emotions is just being transparent, that needing someone is just being human. Maybe it is. But human doesn't always attract. Human, raw and unfiltered, doesn't always run the show. When you show it all, you give up control. And you know the feeling. You've been there. Think about the exact moment you let someone go. No drama, no begging, no big scene. Didn't their attention gravitate right back to you? Didn't you start to shine as soon as you stopped chasing? There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't need. About someone who can walk away without leaving a trace of resentment. About someone who controls their emotions, not because they don't have them, but because they don't hand them over on a silver platter. And here's where Machiavelli comes in. Not the cartoon villain they taught you about in high school, but the sharp observer of human nature. The guy who realized the most effective power isn't loud. It's the power that leaves quietly. The one who knew that if you're not dependent, you're in charge. And whoever can master their own needs starts to influence everyone else's reactions too. When you stop running after what isn't meant for you, something inside you realigns, and when that happens, you rise. You're no longer acting out of emptiness, but from choice. You stop asking, why don't they want me? And start asking, why am I giving so much to someone who can't even see me? That clarity, this strategic way of feeling, doesn't make you cold, it makes you sharp. Because detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. Knowing that the one who feels the most doesn't always win, and the one who stays calm in the storm isn't always the loser. There's a kind of attraction that isn't about looks or words. It's about your ability to walk away quietly. Your power to look without pleading. That strange balance between being present and keeping your distance. When you no longer have to prove your worth to anybody, the world starts to see you differently. You stop competing, begging, demanding. And in that withdrawal, something about you becomes unbreakable, even mysterious, irresistible. And you know what happens then? People start to wonder why you aren't broken by the things that tear them apart. Why you can disappear without leaving resentment behind. Why you don't demand what's clearly yours. It unsettles them, because they're used to noise, drama, pleading. But you don't play by those rules. Your silence is unsettling. It's like you're quietly saying, I can leave, and you'll feel my absence more than I ever felt your presence. You don't need to be cruel. You don't need to manipulate. You just need to do one thing. Stop proving yourself. Because the most primitive human desire isn't love, it's to be admired. And admiration isn't demanded, it's inspired. And you inspire it by not needing, by not chasing, by letting go with your head held high, not with a broken spirit. That move, so rare these days, is what makes you an enigma. And people are always drawn to mysteries more than bare, open confessions. Machiavelli understood that real power isn't shown through emotional outbursts, but through control. True strength is knowing when to keep quiet, when to step back, when to let go before you're dragged down. Because if you can anticipate, you're in control. In love, family, or friendships, the person who doesn't lean on outside validation always gets the last word, even if they don't say it out loud. Now think about it. How many times did you lose your power because you showed too much? How many times did you believe love meant holding on, when it was actually about letting go? How many times did you become predictable, drained, always available, just because you were afraid of not being chosen? Don't blame yourself. You were taught this, that the more you give, the more you'll get. The longer you wait, the more you deserve. But reality, the reality Machiavelli saw, without sugarcoating it, is different. The one who waits the longest only gets more tired. The one who gives without limits loses themselves. So when you finally learn to stop expecting, when you quit giving it all away, when you let go without falling apart, you transform. Not into someone cold, but into someone free. And that freedom is what makes you attractive. In a world full of people on their knees for affection, you stand tall. In a world desperate to be seen, you choose when to show up. In a world of noise, you pick your silence. And that self-control, that inner steadiness, is what Machiavelli meant by true power. A power that doesn't need to flex, because it's written all over the way you exist. So next time you feel yourself starting to cling, starting to need too much, starting to turn your presence into a plea, pause. Breathe. Remember who you are. Step back. Not to run away, but to observe, to return to yourself. Because in that quiet step back, you get your control back. And when control is internal, it naturally shows up on the outside. The strongest kind of attraction doesn't have to be manufactured. It grows out of real detachment. Not fake, not forced, but the kind of detachment that comes from really knowing your worth doesn't depend on what you can hold on to, but on what you can let go of without losing yourself in the process. And when you get to that point, you don't compete for love. You don't chase after attention. You don't shout for recognition. You're just there, present, unavoidable, irresistible. It's not that letting go of need turns you into some emotionless marble statue. It just reminds you that feelings aren't an excuse to give yourself away without limits. Because when you give everything without stopping, open up with no boundaries, or expect someone else to complete you, you lose your balance. And losing your balance makes you vulnerable, easy to manipulate. Machiavelli never called love a crime. He saw it as a risk. And any risk, if you don't weigh it out, comes back to bite hard later. What he understood, and most people still haven't figured out, is that even affection needs strategy. You can feel things deeply. You can love like crazy. You can spend endless nights thinking about that one person, that situation, or that thing that didn't go your way. But none of that means you have to put everything on display. Because putting it all out there leaves you exposed. And even if people tell you that's brave, a lot of the time, it's just unnecessary vulnerability. Not every bit of transparency is courage. Sometimes it's just desperation, dressed up as nobility. Being detached doesn't mean closing your heart. It means knowing when to stop handing it over on a silver platter. Not to just anyone. Not whenever. And not without it being mutual. It's about seeing with depth, without being desperate to be seen. It's listening without being obsessed with being heard. It's giving, sure, but from a place of abundance, not out of need. And when you do that, something in you starts to draw people in. Because, even if they can't put their finger on it, they sense you can't be manipulated. They realize you won't play that game of conditional affection. That you're not waiting around for someone to choose you, because you've already chosen yourself. That's the real heart of power, in any human situation. Whether it's politics, the world Machiavelli analyzed with brutal honesty, or your most personal relationships. The less you need, the more in control you are. Not out of coldness, but out of real stability. And when you're steady inside, you don't fall apart if someone doesn't want you, or twist yourself up if they don't call. You don't lose it if you're rejected, because you already know your worth isn't defined by how others react to you. And what happens when you lead with that kind of energy? Everything changes. Suddenly, your silences speak louder than your words. Your absence means more than any text you could send. Your calm diffuses more conflict than any complaint. Because the world expects you to react, to break down, to keep pushing. People expect you to suffer out loud, to cry in public, to demand explanations, to insist on attention. But you don't give them that. And that throws them off balance. There's a kind of strength you don't have to force. It's the kind that simply won't bend. The kind that doesn't scramble for what isn't meant to be. That doesn't build connections based on the fear of being left alone. That strength? It shows up when you stop confusing love with persistence. When you realize if you have to beg, it's not love, it's self-abandonment. Machiavelli might have written for rulers, but his words fit perfectly in everyday life. Because you govern a kingdom too, your mind, your body, your dignity. And you can't let your kingdom turn into a no man's land for other people's expectations, empty promises, or relationships that never give back what you pour in. You can't trade your crown for a little bit of attention. You can't turn your throne over to someone who can't even manage their own emotional chaos. That's the power of detachment, not as a front, but as a boundary. Not as some fake aloofness, but as a real form of self-respect. Because what you don't protect loses value. If you don't guard your emotional energy, your time, your silence, someone else will use it against you. And people aren't always malicious. Sometimes they just keep taking as long as you keep giving. Not to hurt you, but because they don't know when to stop. And the only one who can set that line is you. Detachment also lets you see things clearly, without that emotional fog blurring everything up. From there, you start to spot patterns, catch subtle manipulation, recognize when someone's reaching out from need instead of genuine care. Because not everything that looks like love actually is. Sometimes it's just habit. Sometimes it's guilt. Sometimes it's ego. And you need clarity to tell the difference. Because loving blindly sounds romantic until you hit a wall. When you stop living your life to fit other people's expectations, something inside you unlocks. Your giving isn't about getting anything back. Your smile isn't just for approval. You stop twisting yourself up for approval or acceptance. You start making choices from a new place. And that place hits different. It's a different vibe. You can feel it. It unsettles people who are still clinging to others for comfort. It confuses those who try to control you through guilt or fear. Because they can't get to you. They don't know how to break through. They can't find that button to trigger a reaction. And that makes them feel powerless. But you're not here to make anyone comfortable. You're here to be real. And being real, a lot of times, means being alone, at least for a while. Until you find someone who isn't threatened by your emotional independence. Someone who doesn't think your silence is coldness. Someone who doesn't need to control you to feel safe. Until then, you walk this road alone. But you're not lost. You're anchored. And in that space, there's no begging for affection. Only choice. Only presence. Only steady strength. And yeah, sometimes there's pain. I'm not about to lie, letting go hurts. Especially when you still care, when you still love, when you still dream. But even that pain is part of getting stronger. It's the price for reclaiming the power you gave up out of fear. Detachment isn't the end goal. It's the path to a cleaner love. A healthier one. A love that's balanced. A kind of love that doesn't drag you under, doesn't consume you, doesn't demand unnecessary sacrifices. A love that never asks you to stop being yourself just to make someone else comfortable. And that kind of love? It only shows up when you're okay on your own. It only arrives when you can say, I don't need it, but if it comes, it's got to add to my life, not subtract from it. That's when you become truly irresistible. Not because you're faking indifference, but because, for real, you no longer depend. And the person who doesn't depend makes real choices. And the one who makes choices attracts. And someone who attracts from a place of wholeness never has to convince anyone to stay. Because they're not searching for company, they're offering presence. And that's the kind of power that neither time, nor rejection, nor being left behind can ever take away. You don't have to run away from the world to find peace. You just have to learn how to stop holding on so tightly. Because real suffering doesn't come from love itself, it comes from attachment. From that stubborn need for things to turn out exactly the way you pictured them. From that silent obsession with keeping alive what's already dead. Losing isn't what hurts. What really hurts is refusing to let go. So, how much longer are you going to keep trying to force something that just isn't flowing? How much more energy will you spend hanging on to relationships that drain you, promises that don't get kept, or places where your light slowly fades out? Maybe silence isn't demanding an answer, but it is asking for a decision. Because time keeps moving while you stay stuck, waiting for signs, reading way too much into absences, romanticizing people who have no intention of sticking around. And meanwhile, your power seeps away. Your strength gets scattered. Your self-respect turns into a faint whisper drowned out by emotional noise. Machiavelli didn't talk about the soul directly, but he sure knew about power. And your soul, even if he never mentioned it, is the first thing you lose when you give away your power carelessly. When you give it all in exchange for crumbs. When you offer your whole self to someone who only wants the watered-down version. That's when you feel it, that emptiness, not from loss, but from abandoning your own center for an affection that was never really yours. Letting go isn't closing yourself off, it's coming home. Returning to yourself. That part of you that never begs, never gets on its knees, never vanishes just because you weren't picked. Detachment isn't about shutting out love. It's about opening up without losing yourself. It's caring for someone with tenderness, but not with need. Loving with all your heart, but with enough peace to let it go when it's no longer mutual, when the connection can't breathe, when being present feels like a chore instead of a gift. There's something deeply beautiful about someone who knows when to walk away. Not out of pride, not out of revenge, but out of respect, self-respect, and respect for love itself. Because even love deserves the dignity of a clean goodbye, with no bitterness, no drama, just the understanding that insisting any further would only be a betrayal of yourself. And you're not here to betray yourself anymore. This world is full of relationships that survive on fear, not love. People pick each other every day not because they really admire one another, but because they don't know how to be alone. So many bonds hang on not out of deep connection, but out of habit, dependence, or just plain attachment. Is that what you really want? Do you honestly want to chain yourself emotionally just to avoid facing the echo of your own voice? Letting go gets you that voice back. It hands you the control, not over other people, but over yourself. You stop waiting. You stop demanding. You're no longer at the mercy of anyone else's mood swings. You learn to hear silence as an answer. You learn not to fill the emptiness with desperate chatter. You learn how to be alone with strength, with pride, with presence. Because now you know you're not lacking anything. You understand that the less you need, the better you can love. And the better you love, the less you destroy yourself over what you can't hold on to. That's when you start to move differently, to see things differently, to relate from a new place. A place where love isn't something you bargained for, it's something you honor. Where your time is valuable. Where your energy isn't up for grabs. Where your emotions aren't some kind of currency, but sacred space. And what's sacred can't be begged for. It's offered, calmly, consciously, with the knowledge that you, too, deserve real reciprocity. It might feel lonely at first. Most people are still hooked on the fantasy that loving means holding on for dear life, all the way until you're burned out. But you're not alone. You're clean. And that's a different kind of company. Because, for the first time in a long while, you've got yourself. And honestly, that's more than most people can say. People will start to notice. They'll feel something's shifted. You don't react the same way. You don't burn yourself out the same way. You're no longer willing to lose yourself just so someone else won't feel lost. And in that shift, something new will emerge: respect, admiration, even attraction. You've stopped chasing. You've stopped explaining the unexplainable. You've stopped lingering where you're not cared for. And that throws people off. What you can't control, you admire. What you can't own, you desire. You're not as available as you used to be. You're not just sitting there for anyone who pops by whenever it works for them. You don't jump at the very first text after weeks of silence. You don't smile just to be polite. Now you choose, with the same depth that you used to wait. Now you give, but only if you get something real in return. Now you stay, but only if you're also being chosen. And if not, you leave. Not as a threat, but as an act of self-love. Because the one who leaves at the right time saves themselves. They leave behind a dignified absence, not a desperate escape. You don't need anyone to get it. You don't need to explain yourself. You just need to be true to this new level of awareness you found. The kind that isn't looking for cheap proof, doesn't mix up passion and attachment, and finally gets that real love isn't supposed to hurt, drain you, or make you feel less. Detachment doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. It means you don't react out of need anymore. You can look someone right in the eye and say, "I love you, but I won't lose myself for you." That sentence, quiet, strong, and honest, is pure power. Because you've reclaimed your throne. And from there, you don't beg. From there you watch. You decide. You honor. So next time you feel like you're losing something, ask yourself, am I really losing? Or am I getting back a piece of myself that I never should have let go? Because every time you let go of what isn't moving forward, you're not running out of love, you're finding your way back to you. And you are enough. Everything else, if it's meant for you, will show up without chains, without you having to beg, with the same freedom you found in letting go. And on that day, when you look back, you'll realize detachment was never about giving up. It was about finally crowning yourself,